Well, good morning, church, and we are picking up exactly where we left off on Tuesday, and so we're going to be looking at the second discussion question. It tells you to read Matthew chapter 24, verse 4 to Matthew chapter 25, verse 46. I'm not going to read all that right now, but I do encourage you to go look it up because there's a lot in there. That is all of Jesus' response to the disciples and their question of, so when can we expect this second coming? When are the end times going to happen? Now, the question it asks is, how would you summarize Jesus' answer to their questions, and what part of Jesus' teaching about his return do you find most troubling? So first off, how would I summarize it? Well, we talked about a lot of those things on Tuesday, but I am going to list really the three main things I see in his responses. Number one, no one knows when it's going to happen. And like I said on Tuesday, that drives us crazy sometimes. We like to have some kind of general idea of how something's going to play out. And the fact that we just don't know. That no matter how hard we study the Bible and the Old Testament, New Testament, all of it, what's made clear more than once is that we're just not going to know. I mean, people in the time of Jesus, or that were right after when Jesus was walking the face of the earth, they thought it was going to happen in their lifetime, and here we are a couple thousand years later. So obviously nobody knows when this is going to play out. Number two, I think what he makes clear pretty quick is we're going to face trials. I think a lot of people have it in their heads that Christians go around saying, oh, life is a cakewalk when you become a Christian. It's easy. Life is so much, it's not hard at all. You should just become a believer so your life gets simple. Well, let me tell you, first off, there is a huge benefit to being able to pray to the God who's absolutely in control of everything. There is a peace that comes from that just, you're not going to get any other way. That relationship with God does bring about fulfillment and peace in our lives. But that doesn't mean trials stop happening in our lives. It's not like God just stops allowing things to happen. We live in a fallen world where sin is in control of a lot of things. At least our perception is that way. But there's things that God would not choose for us to have to deal with it because of sin. They're all around us. That means we're going to face trials that aren't even related to our own sin. Although a lot of times what we face in our lives, these trials are a consequence to a sin we've done. So all of these things are going on. It's hard to be a Christian sometimes. That's why there are places even today where Christians are literally put to death because of the fact that they're a Christian and they're trying to share the gospel. I think a lot of people could point to things about even our culture today that it clashes with what God's word says. And so there's times where we end up not looking great, that our society doesn't understand where we're coming from. And some people would call some of that a level of persecution. So there are trials that face us, not just because of our faith, but just in everyday life, family things going on, health issues, those kind of things. They're going to happen. And Jesus kind of lays that out, that look, and he specifically talks about persecutions, which I think here in America, we honestly have a lot lighter version of that than compared to other parts of the world where, like I said, people are literally put to death for their faith or tortured even. But there are still smaller persecutions that do happen in our country. I'm not blind to that. Then we also see him go on to discuss this idea of just how urgent, how we need to prepare for his return. I think a lot of us, because we don't know when it's happening, we think, oh, it's probably not happening for a while, I got time. And like I said Tuesday, we don't know how much time we have. Even if we're not talking about the return of Jesus, but when we get to return or go home to heaven, we don't know how much time we have, and there's an urgency because we don't know how much time anyone has. That's how important, that's the urgency we should come at sharing the gospel with, that we need to tell people because they need to hear it, and we don't know how much time we have left to tell them. That's why we need to live it out in everything that we do, that we need to share it with our mouths so that they can hear the gospel and come to an understanding of it and have that relationship with God restored in their life as well. And so those are the main areas. And now when it comes to what's troubling about his teaching, obviously that's going to change for every person, but I see that urgency, and unfortunately there's a lot of times I don't see that urgency in the church. I think we've become too blinded, kind of like the disciples looking at the buildings, which are incredible things. I think a lot of times we get so enamored with what's around us that we lose sight of how important things of eternal value are, that we don't think about how urgent it is that we reach our community with the gospel. And we continue to put it off. Church, we can't continue to do that. We need to make sure that we are living out this gospel, that we are sharing it with our mouths, that we are trying to help people to see how important Jesus is to us, that we desperately need Jesus. It's not just that they do, we desperately need Jesus. And we want them to experience the grace we've been shown. So my hope and prayer is that would challenge you, that you would think through, how can I better live this out? Who is God placed in my life that I can share the gospel with? Because God has placed people in your life that you are supposed to share that with. So be praying about who that is and how you could more effectively share the gospel with your community. We'll see you soon.